Reporting to you live from 1989, or as I would call it, the good old days of basketball. You come in my paint, you're catching a 1-2 combo right to your jaw. I'm throwing a forearm shiver right in your teeth. I'm going to have four of your teeth right here in my forearm, and I love it because this is American basketball. All these dang Europeans didn't come over here yet with all their flipping and flopping. I miss the ABA when real men would play basketball. I'm in the league because I'm 7 feet tall. I can't shoot a three, I can't shoot a free throw, but I'm 7 feet tall and I can play basketball because my 7 foot height is my only skill. Not seriously, to be honest. There were still skilled 7 foot big men, probably even back in 1989. I know Vlade Divac, pretty sure he was already in the league shortly after our boy Drazen Petrovic came in. How can we forget about Drazen Petrovic? That's the boy. Please like and subscribe, or don't. I want my channel to fail. Moving on though, my video is about flopping in the NBA if you haven't figured it out yet. A lot of the American older coaches, older fans, I'm sure you probably heard it before as well, always blame Europeans on bringing flopping to the NBA. They basically want to say, there was no one flopping in the NBA until the Euro players kind of popularized it and brought it over from the overseas Euro League to the NBA, and now flopping is out of control, too much flopping and foul baiting and blah blah blah. I would agree that flopping and foul baiting is kind of too much. It's way more than it was back in the 90s. That's not to say nobody was flopping back then, because that's just not true. But we have a lot of floppers and foul baiters in today's NBA. I would say the problem is more the officiating than the actual players. I've made the point before. If the officials aren't calling all these little ticky-tack, flippy-floppy fouls, you're just going to have these top floppers in the NBA, and we'll just make a whole low light reel of you flipping and flopping around and not getting a whistle and looking like an idiot. And if you did that for 1, 2, 3 months, the players are going to realize, man, I just look stupid out here flopping around and falling down. I'm going to stop doing that because Shaq keeps putting me on Shaqting the Fool and I look stupid with all my flopping. But again, people want to say European players brought flopping into the NBA. I believe flopping came from soccer. If I didn't look up the exact year or anything, but flopping seemed to be in soccer before it came into the NBA. Soccer is more popular in Europe than America, so the Euro League kind of took flopping from soccer and moved it over into the NBA. By the way, real quick, if you are a soccer fan, let me know what y'all think about flopping in soccer because I don't watch a bunch of soccer, but I'm curious to think what European and other soccer fans think about flopping in soccer and if it's as big of a problem as it's made out to be in the NBA. Let me know, my soccer fans. But moving into NBA history, people want to say European players brought flopping into the NBA, blah, blah, blah. We hate European players in America for whatever reason. All the best players in the NBA pretty much are European at this point. So, where they're foreign at least. So, it makes no sense why we hate on European players so much. We're not the ABA anymore, we're the NBA. It's a National Basketball Association. Show these European players some love. I mean, Giannis, Jokic, SGA is from Canada, Wemby is from Europe as well. There's more players, but basically the top five in the NBA probably aren't even American players at this point. So let's try to show the European players some love. I feel like our media could be much better at that. But right here, this is an AI summary, so it's not always right, but I'm sure this is more or less around the time first European player to join the NBA was our boy Drazen Petrovic. Who can forget about Drazen Petrovic? Just I've never heard of the man, but all love to Drazen. Signed by the Trailblazers in 1989. He was actually born in Croatia, which is part of Yugoslavia. For your quick geography lesson, played in the NBA until 1993. It's actually when I was born, so I was literally not even alive to watch this guy play, so that's probably why I haven't heard of him. Credited with paving the way for future European players, so that's awesome. He was the Trailblazer. That's funny, he actually played for the Trailblazers and he was a Trailblazer from Europe into the NBA, so that's awesome for our boy Drazen. Inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2002. I didn't look at his career and whatnot, but I believe part of it, he probably had very good numbers. I didn't look it up, but I believe part of the reason he probably made it into the Hall of Fame was also his trailblazing ways and setting the path for European players. That's not to say he couldn't have gotten just off of his numbers, but I'm sure that was a big thing. And that's a big deal, kind of paving the way for Europe there. So that's awesome for Drazen. Again, that was 1989, back in the good old days when men played basketball. Hit you with an elbow to your forehead, and you have to get stapled up after the game because this is ABA, American Basketball Association, men's basketball. Moving on, our boy Drazen, 1989, he's out here. So here is, I looked up the first ever recorded flop in NBA history. The AI summary is, this is 100% wrong. The AI is not right about this. The term flop refers to a player exaggerating contact to draw a foul. That's true. Everybody already knows that. First recorded flop in the NBA is often attributed to Vlade Divac in the 2001 playoffs. That's just not true. I was watching the 1991 NBA Finals, the Chicago Bulls versus the Lakers, and Divac was on the Lakers. He's still younger. I don't think he was a rookie at that point, but this was 10 years before this flop and wasn't nearly like it is today. There was not as much flopping and foul baiting. Honestly, not even close. But in that series, that final series in 1991, Vlade flopped at least 3 or 4 different times, maybe more. But there was one that I thought was pretty bad. It was either, I think it was Bill Cartwright was trying to get position in the post against him, and Cartwright, his forearm got a little high and it maybe brushed up against Divac's like chin hairs, and Vlade Divac, act like he got hit by an uppercut or something. So Divac was already flopping in 1991. I think a lot of people would get really mad at him about that, and that was something people would bash on him for, which is totally fair. I'll bash on floppers at 91. I'll bash on floppers in today's game. I think it's just not part of the game. People are taking advantage of the referees. Like I said earlier in the game, I feel like officiating is the problem, though. Your professional officials, people have been flopping for at least 35 years now, because I saw in 1991 Vlade Divac was definitely already flopping. So I just want the officials to try to officiate it better, but it's so hard, especially with how good a lot of these players have gotten at acting. Right here, in the 2001, they said he famously fell to the ground after minimal contact with Jason Kidd. I honestly don't remember this play, but I need to go back and check it out. I think I've heard about it, and it was supposed to be a really, really egregious flop. Right down here, NBA introduced rules to penalize flopping. I guess this is talking about, it was either this season or last season. They have the rule now where you get a technical foul for like an egregious flop, and they don't enforce it nearly as much. They need to get better at enforcing that, but basketball is still advancing and growing. Whether people like to believe it or not, the game has not stopped growing. I know three-pointers and flopping and this and that, people like to kind of hate on the game right now, but I still think the game's in a good place. It wasn't as bad as the middle of the dead ball era in 2000, 2001 when teams were scoring 85, 90 points per game, and I still enjoyed that style of basketball, just for the record. But yeah, flopping's become a controversial tactic in basketball, influencing player behavior, so we all know that as well. But again, this says first flop was 2001 playoffs by Divac. I know that's 100% not true. The latest flop that I found was the 1991 finals, and it was Vlade Divac again, but he was already flopping 10 years before that, so shout out to our boy Vlade Divac. Moving on though, right here, flopping, a history of nonviolence in the NBA. This is from 2013, so this is 12 years ago. Right here, though, it's talking about the 1976 finals. So this is freaking 26 years before that Vlade Divac flop they were talking about. I'm not going to read the entire article, of course, but this is from Grantland.com if y'all want to check out the entire article. No one's here just to watch me read a book, but this was at Boston Garden. The Rockets and the Celtics were playing. Houston guard Mike Newlin slid in the path of David Cowens, Celtics legend. I have actually heard of David Cowens, just his name in conversations. But anyway, Cowens is driving to the hoop. He brushes Newlin. I don't think there's any footage of this, but he barely brushes the man. And then, just like in today's NBA, Newlin acted as if he'd been blasted by a shotgun, flying backward and drawing the charge. Cowens pleads his case, but no avail. So basically, long story short, it was probably a blocking foul or just not even a foul at all, and our boy Mike Newland flopped his ass off and got the call. Collins turns to the ref, the cowardly figure of Mike Newland, holding an Oscar statue, blah, blah, blah. Cowens did what real men would do back in the day. It says he Jadeveon Clowney, the villain. This is in 2013. Jadeveon Clowney had just destroyed some guy in one of the bowl games. So he's basically saying, in Jadeveon Clowney's case, if you don't remember, it was a terrible call. Officials made a horrible call. Very next play, Jadeveon Clowney destroys the running back and gets a strip, not a strip sack, but he makes him fumble, and Jadeveon Clowney recovers the fumble. So he's basically saying, terrible call. Cowens comes back and just fouls the crap out of Mike Newland, I guess. Just a retaliation foul, which was not uncommon back then. Red Auerbach. Once they get back to the locker room, it's about time. Back then, just a different game. I don't necessarily approve of knocking guys on their ass when they come in the paint or trying to hard foul and possibly hurt guys. I don't think they're necessarily trying to hurt the guys with the hard foul, but just kind of send a message. I don't so much agree with that, but anyway, Cowens fouls the crap out of Newland to get his revenge. Then moving on, the 80s would bring more flopping. So again, they were already flopping in the 80s. This is 1976. Again, the article I looked up was just the oldest recorded flop, and this is the latest one. The earliest flop I could find was our boy Mike Newland. Then the article just goes on. 90s and 20s came those dastardly Euros. Again, like I was saying, there's strange consonant choke names, douchey 5-day beard stubble. The article is being sarcastic, but they're just bashing on the Euro players. Now look at us, league beset by heads jerked backward and flailing arms, basically saying people are flopping like crazy. If we could return to the good old days when men were men. But he's just being sarcastic in this article. He gets on to, there's a problem with this narrative. Frank Ramsey, he played from 1954 to 1964, 13.4 points, 5 rebounds, whatever it is. It says he also quite literally wrote the book on flopping. December 9th, 1963 was when this book came out. We're going to get into it. This was 1976, remember? That's when Mike Newland did his infamous flop. The book's called Smart Moves by a Master of Deception. The book came out, in 1963 was when the book came out. Moving on. Here we go. This is Smart Moves by a Master of Deception is what it's called. This is so funny. This is like, this reminds me if Draymond Green would have played back then and he's just doing all this crazy flopping stuff that he does today, he would probably call himself a Master of Deception and write a book called Smart Moves by a Master of Deception instead of a book called I'm Flopping and cheating the integrity of the game and just making the game look ugly at times. But anyway, it's an entire book about how to be a Master of Deception, he would call it. We'll just read a couple little things from the book. Drawing fouls chiefly requires the ability to provide good heartwarming drama. It sounds so bad. It's like if Draymond wrote a book about it. He's basically saying heartwarming drama and direct it to the right audience. He's looking at himself as a great player, like he's doing an art form of flopping. I never forget where the referees are when I go into an act. This is 1963, remember. The most reliable eye catcher is still the pratfall. He has names for his moves, particularly on defense. When everything else fails, I fall down. It's called flopping, 1963. Luckily, I happen to be the type cast for the part because I have a peculiar running style back on my heels with my knees locked. What? It makes falling very easy and natural looking for me. Falling very easy and natural looking. He's saying it's natural looking because he knows the flopping he's doing is unnatural flops. I am beaten here. Just a little article from the book. I'm sure he's referring to some play from his career, but his man had a clear drive past me to the basket unless I step in front of him, be a definite blocking foul on him. Basically, if he shuffles his feet and gets in front of his man, he knows the ref's going to call a blocking foul on him. Instead, I shift my weight to get as much of my body as I can in front of him without moving my feet. So basically saying his feet are planted, he just leans his body to try to get in front of him. If the official is anywhere behind me, it will appear as if I am in front of my man. Again, this is 1963. The NBA has only been around 30 years, if even that. I forgot the exact year, but maybe 30 years the NBA has been around. So officials are still learning how to better officiate the game, and players are learning how to manipulate officials. But basically what he's saying again, his feet are planted. The guy's got him beat. Instead of shuffling his feet and getting a for sure blocking foul, he's just trying to lean his body in front of the player. And that's still a blocking foul. You got to be set, straight up and down. If you're leaning one way or the other, it would be a blocking foul back then and in today's NBA. But moving on, then at the first contact, I fall down as if my man had charged right into me. With any luck, the foul I deserve will be called on the other guy. That's insane. He's just a flopper saying he deserves, or actually, no, he said it right. The foul I deserve. My apologies to you. What's this guy's name again? Frank Ramsey. I apologize to you because he wrote this. He wrote this correctly. He said, first contact, with any luck, the foul I deserve, because he knows he was in the wrong, gets a blocking foul. But with any luck, it'll be called on the other guy. This is from 1963 again when he wrote this book. The book is called, again, Smart Moves by a Master of Deception, if you want to check it out. But the book came out in 1963, before any European players had come into the NBA, at least according to the article we were looking at, when right there, our boy Drazen Petrovic in 1989, he came in the NBA. So this book came out 1963, 26 years before Drazen Petrovic had made it to the NBA. So I think I pretty much, that's where I'm looking for, wiped out that conspiracy, or kind of disproven that European players brought flopping to the NBA or invented flopping, because it's just not true. This is from 1954 to 1964. So in the early days of the NBA, players were already flopping. Our boy Frank Ramsey was flopping around out on the court and acting like he's a genius. Smart moves by a master of deception. All the dark sorcery is in there, but it's just a whole book about flopping if you want to check it out, and just made himself seem like a master of deception. But back to the point of the video, though, I don't think European players brought flopping to the NBA. This kind of proves it, because 26 years before our boy Drazen Petrovic came into the NBA, there was already an entire book out about flopping and how to be a good flopper, or foul baiter, foul drawer, whatever you want to call it. But I think this kind of disproves that narrative that European players brought flopping into the NBA. A lot of American basketball fans, I don't think so much newer fans, but older fans, just love to hate on European players for whatever reason. And again, it's the National Basketball Association. It's not the American Basketball Association like it used to be. So let's show the Euros some love, and let's call it for what it is. European players didn't invent flopping. Moving on, if you feel like European players kind of flopped the most, at least from like 1990 to the early 2000s, later 2000s. I know Ginobili. I love Ginobili. I'm a Spurs fan, but Ginobili would do a lot of flopping. Vlade Divac was another guy that would do a lot of flopping. There's other notorious floppers throughout NBA history, but it's unfair to say it's all the Europeans. American players flop just as much, if not more. Jalen Brunson does a lot of flopping today. Again, I love Jalen Brunson. SGA is Canadian, but he does a lot of flopping too. It's not just European players, so I think we can kind of disprove that narrative, and just just call it for what it is. European players didn't bring flopping into the NBA. It's been going on since 1963, and our boy, I keep forgetting his name. Our boy Frank Ramsey, again, he came into NBA in 1954, and I feel like he was already flopping in 1954 before he wrote this book. So it's basically always been in the NBA. Flopping and foul drawing have always been a part of it. I always put the onus on the officials. It's always been there. It's your job as an official to spot it out, recognize when it's happening, and try to call the game correctly. I feel like we could better use the replay system as well and get most of these flopping calls correct. They already do it for out of bounds and things like that. We can't do it for every single foul call throughout the game. Otherwise, the game would take 4 hours because there's a foul on every single play. If you really want to look at it and look at all 10 guys on the court, you can call a foul probably every single play. But please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Comment below. Let me know what you think about our boy Frank Ramsey and just the untrue rumors that European players brought flopping into the NBA, because it's just not true. Thank you guys again.